I tend to get a fair amount of questions on supplements, especially on stuff to use around a workout. So I just kind of want to go over general recommendations for what things are going to have value in different situations. And then I'll also go over, in front of me, this is the stuff that I use, so I'll kind of go piece by piece. So we'll look at pre-workout first. Pre-workout, a lot of stuff on the market tends to be just really stimulant heavy. Stimulants can be fine pre-training, especially if you're training earlier in the day, but we don't want to simply just use so much caffeine that our nervous system kind of goes on charge for an hour and we kind of don't blink during the course of our workout. So I'll show you, there's a couple things that we want to get with our pre-training stuff. Like I said, a little bit of caffeine is fine. I think like 250 milligrams caffeine tends to work okay. Caffeine does work great kind of as a delivery agent for some of the other stuff in your pre-workout. It can function as a mild thermogenic, you know, it can help with energy production. We just don't want to rely so much on it that we kind of overcharge our nervous system, because that can actually lead to faster fatigue during a workout if we overdo it. So, but if you train later in the day, you're probably going to want to look for something that is stimulant free, especially if stimulants tend to give you an issue with sleeping. So a couple of things that do work really nicely pre-training. So I like a lot of things that are more cognitively focused. So I like stuff like alpha GPC, I like stuff like teacrine, I like stuff like lion's mane. It tends to help with mental acuity as opposed to just caffeine, which is more of like a nervous system kind of a stimulant. So it doesn't do a whole lot of stimulant for the brain. So I also like vasodilators. I like stuff like citrulline, essentially citrulline malate, and I like stuff like arginine. So a couple of things that I use. So one, so I use a lot of stuff from Granite Supplements. I also use supplements from NutraBio. We were one of Granite Supplements' original retailers when they started in 2016. I've been working with John Meadows' company since shortly before Granite Supplements started, and he was one of the founders. And we've used their stuff ever since. Great stuff. A lot of high product testing, so what you get in the product is going to match what's on the label. So this is their pre-workout called GX pre-workout that has stimulants in it. So this has 250 milligrams of caffeine. It also has things like alpha GPC. It's got citrulline. It's got taurine for vasodilation. But this is gonna blend the vasodilation for blood flow. That's great, especially if you're gonna be doing more like a bodybuilding style workout, a lot more repetition focused. If your reps are a little bit more on like the powerlifting side where you're staying super low rep, you probably don't need a ton of vasodilation stuff. But for someone who's more into like physique transformation, whether it's muscle gain or fat loss or both, that stuff tends to be a little bit better. So, a little bit more dominant on caffeine. It's also a little bit more dominant on the cognitive side. So I tend to use this one the most, unless I'm training after maybe the 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I will use this one. This is called Vasoblast. This is their stimulant-free version. This tends to rely a little bit more on the vasodilation, the blood flow side. It's also got some stuff in there for heart health and vascular health, which can be great. But one of the things that isn't in there is going to be caffeine. So kind of a trade-off. You get caffeine here, but you get a little bit more cognitive stuff, which I like earlier in the day. Not as much on the cognitive side, a bit more on the blood flow focus side with the Vasoblast. So I'll use a scoop of this or a scoop of this about 15-20 minutes prior to training. So usually what I'll do is basically when I get in the car to drive to the gym, I will take a scoop of one of these two things. If I'm in a period of time where I'm also trying to focus on recomposition or fat loss, I will also use this. This is called Thermoburn. This is their essentially fat burning supplement. It's not super heavy on caffeine. There's 100 milligrams of caffeine, which is, it's kind of like what, 6 ounces of coffee, something like that. So it's not a super high caffeinated product, but caffeine in there is kind of functioning as a delivery system for some of the more metabolic stimulants that are in there. So one of the things that's in there that I like a lot is capsicum. Capsicum comes from like your hot pepper sort of stuff. So it does tend to make people feel a little bit warmer. If you're on the sensitive side of that, you might split the dose in half and only do half of a dose. So Pre-workout only if I'm in a dieting phase, otherwise there's really no need to be using something like this. And then we got stim-free and we've got stuff with caffeine in it. So whether you use this particular products or not, look for less than like 250 milligrams of caffeine in it, even if you want some, even if you're a stimulant junkie, just because past that, it's going to tend to have a point of more like diminishing returns. And then as far as what I do during training is I do two things. So I use creatine during training. Now, creatine is not time sensitive in any way. Creatine is stored inside of your muscle tissue, so it's a matter of just taking it in order to get creatine inside the muscles. It can take up to sometimes 2 weeks to saturate the muscle tissue with creatine, depending on how much you take it at time. So I only take it during training just because it's easy to mix with the other stuff that I'm using. But again, you could take this in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. It has zero bearing on time sensitivity, but I like to get about a total of 10 grams in a dose. The GX pre-workout, this one actually has 3 grams of caffeine in it. So if I'm using this, I'll use like a scoop and a half of this. That puts me at 7 grams of this, another 3 grams here, so puts me around 10. If I'm not using this, I'll just do a double dose of this. And I'll mix that with this. So this is Granite's product. It's called Recovery. Basically, I've been using some combination of essential amino acids and highly branched cyclic dextrin, which is basically essential amino acids are like pre-digested protein. Okay, so it doesn't require blood to go to the GI tract in order to digest it, which is huge because when you're training, all your blood should be out of your GI tract and it should be in your muscles and your arms, your legs, your chest, your back, whatever you're training. So we don't want to divert a bunch of blood flow back to the stomach. So by using essential amino acids, it's pre-digested, so it doesn't require that blood flow. And then the cyclic dextrin works the same way. So it's basically taking dextrose and sort of like pre-digesting it, so it's much easier to assimilate. It doesn't drive insulin the same way. So this has 6 grams of essential amino acids. It also has some ashwagandha in it. Ashwagandha is an herbal adaptogen to help regulate stress. Obviously, training is a big stress. It also has a full spectrum of electrolytes in it. Obviously, you're going to lose a lot of your electrolytes through your sweat when you're training, so we want to replenish that sort of stuff. Water is not going to be enough to promote hydration. We need to get the individual electrolytes back in the body as we sweat them out. This also has a different type of carbonate called platinose. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never actually heard it spoken. I've only ever seen it on a label. It's one of those things where if I am saying it wrong, this is going on YouTube, I'm positive somebody will correct me on the pronunciation in the comments. But so we've got essential amino acids, and then we've got 2 different types of carbs. The cyclic dextrin is a bit faster releasing, and then the platinose is a little bit slower releasing. So if you're training for 45, 60, 70 minutes, you're going to get a little steady stream of release of carbs into your body. The whole concept is to expedite the recovery process, so that way we don't have to come out of the gym immediately trying to slam a protein shake to push the recovery side of things. And it'll help get you more out of your workout. You won't fatigue quite as fast. It'll help buffer things like lactic acid. What I do is I tend to use about 1.5 servings of this, so that puts me at around 8-9 grams of aminos, and then it puts me at about 30 grams of carbs taken during a training session. I've found unless workouts are getting up to like 90 minutes or more, I don't think a whole lot of extra carbs is really necessary. Granted, I'm also about 190 pounds, so if someone is, in the 220, 230 range, you might need to push the carbs up a little bit. So you can kind of play with the dosing on that. But that's, with this, what I will do is I will fill this up with my water when I'm starting my warm-ups. So warm-ups take about 10 minutes, so I'll start sipping it, so it's got a few minutes to kind of get into my system. By the time I'm actually getting into my first couple of working sets, it's pretty much already there, and then I will just sip it throughout the workout. Goal is basically I want to have this completely gone before I start the last set of the day. And then from there, that way I don't need to worry about my post-training meal until I've already been out of the gym for a good 60, 90 minutes. I don't have to rush the process because I've already got this circulating in my system. So this is what I use. If you got more questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll start doing more stuff like this. So let me know if there's any other type of videos on supplement stuff you want to see. And there you go.